Please step aside, Grandma. We only want the main family in this photo. Those words, spoken by the granddaughter I had supported for 5 years, shattered my heart. That afternoon, I realized I wasn't their matriarch. I was just their ATM. But what they didn't know was that the ATM was about to shut down forever. Before we continue with this story, please subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this situation. My name is Evelyn, and I am 76 years old. For the past 5 years, I have lived a double life that no one suspected. To the outside world, I am a retired teacher living a modest, quiet life on a fixed income. But in reality, I have been the secret financial engine keeping my granddaughter's entire life afloat. Chloe is 29 years old, and she is my only granddaughter. When my husband Arthur passed away 5 years ago, he left me a comfortable inheritance and his pension. I made a vow at his bedside in those final hours, a promise I thought I understood. I vowed to look after Chloe, to ensure she never struggled the way we did starting out. I thought I was helping her build a future and become the woman she was meant to be. I thought I was being a good grandmother, honoring my husband's last wish. But looking back now, I see that I wasn't building a future at all. I was financing a fantasy, and I was disappearing inside it. A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome, of Arthur's final day. The hospital room had smelled of antiseptic and fading flowers. His hand in mine was so thin I could feel every bone, every fragile vein beneath the papery skin. "Evelyn," he had whispered, his voice barely a thread of sound. "Promise me you'll look after Chloe. She's lost, but she's not gone. She just needs guidance." I had squeezed his hand, tears streaming down my face. "I promise, Arthur. I'll take care of her. I'll help her find her way." He had smiled then, a ghost of the smile I had loved for 43 years. "You always were the strong one," he said. "Don't let her take advantage of that strength." I hadn't understood what he meant at the time. I thought he was warning me about the world, about strangers who might prey on a widow. I never imagined he was warning me about our own granddaughter. But before Chloe became who she is now, she was someone else entirely. I remember her at 7 years old, the year her grandfather got sick for the first time. She had come to visit us, and Arthur was in bed, weak from his first round of chemotherapy. I was in the kitchen, trying not to cry into the soup I was making. Little Chloe had wandered into the bedroom alone. I found her there 20 minutes later, sitting on the edge of his bed, holding his hand. She was reading to him from a picture book, her small voice serious and careful. "And the bunny found his way home," she read, "because he never gave up, and because he knew someone was waiting for him." Arthur's eyes were closed, but he was smiling. When Chloe saw me in the doorway, she whispered, "I'm helping Grandpa feel better, Grandma. He needs someone to read to him so he's not scared." That little girl, with her tangled hair and her fierce protective love, had broken my heart in the best way. Where did she go? When did the girl who read to her sick grandfather become the woman who would tell me to step aside? It was a Tuesday morning when the familiar buzz of my phone broke the silence of my kitchen. I didn't need to look at the screen to know what it was. It was the 25th of the month, and the pattern had become as predictable as the sunrise. "Hey, Grandma. Just a reminder about the rent. Landlord is being annoying again. Love you." The text message ended with a heart emoji, but the warmth didn't reach me anymore. It never did anymore. It was just decoration on a demand. I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the screen while my coffee grew cold. My coffee had gone cold, much like the relationship I had with my granddaughter. With a heavy sigh, I opened my banking app. My fingers trembled slightly, not from age, but from a mix of resignation and hidden anger. I entered the amount, $2,000. Transfer. Confirm. Just like that, a significant chunk of my monthly income was gone. Sent to an apartment I rarely visited, for a lifestyle I wasn't part of, for people who saw me as a function. Chloe and her husband Ben lived in a trendy downtown loft, the kind of place young professionals dream of. Exposed brick walls, high ceilings, industrial lighting that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. But neither of them were professionals in the traditional sense, or any sense at all. Ben was 31, a man who always had a big business idea but never a steady paycheck. He drove a leased luxury car he couldn't afford and wore suits that cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. He talked about investments and opportunities, but the only investment I ever saw was my money into his lifestyle. And Chloe? Chloe was building her personal brand on social media. She had 12,000 followers and zero income, unless you counted my bank transfers. 10 minutes after I sent the money, my phone buzzed again. It wasn't a thank you text. It was an Instagram notification. So blessed to have such a supportive family. Hashtag family love. Hashtag generations. Hashtag grateful. The photo was of Chloe holding my great-grandson Leo. She looked radiant, successful, blessed, just like her caption claimed. I wasn't in the picture, of course. I was never in the picture she posted publicly. I was just the ghost behind the filter. But the caption implied a deep, spiritual connection, a gratitude that I knew was hollow as a drum. The support she hashtagged was my money, stripped of my name. To her followers, she was a successful young mother doing it all on her own merit. To me, she was a bottomless pit of needs and demands dressed up in aesthetic fonts. A few days later, I was folding laundry when I remembered I had left Leo's birthday present at their apartment. I hadn't planned to drop by unannounced, but I was in the neighborhood, and I thought I would pick it up. The building had one of those modern intercoms, but I still had the key code from last year. I rode the elevator up to the 4th floor and walked down the hallway to their door. I was about to knock when I heard voices through the thin walls. Ben's voice, loud and agitated, carried through clearly. They rejected it again, babe. They said our debt-to-income ratio is trash. No bank will touch us. Well, what about Grandma? Chloe replied, her voice casual, like she was discussing what to have for dinner. Can't we use her pension as a guarantor or something? She's got to have decent credit. I'm working on it. The old lady is sitting on a gold mine and doesn't even know what to do with it. We just need to finesse it. Get her to add us to her accounts, set up a joint thing. It's not hard. My hand froze inches from the door. The old lady, sitting on a gold mine. Finesse it. Is that what I was to them? An asset to be liquidated? A resource to be mined until there was nothing left but dust? I didn't knock. I turned around and walked back to the elevator. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. I saw an old woman with watery eyes and a trembling lip. I saw someone who had been a fool for 5 years and was only just now waking up. That afternoon, I needed to escape the suffocating walls of my empty house. I needed to go somewhere I was still a person, not a problem to be finessed. I took the bus to the Westside Community Center, my sanctuary for the past decade. This was where Evelyn the ATM disappeared, and Evelyn the teacher returned. For 10 years, I had volunteered here 3 times a week, reading to children and tutoring adults. As I walked through the glass doors, the smell of old books and floor wax welcomed me home. Mrs. Evelyn, you're here! A group of children, sitting on the colorful rug in the reading corner, looked up with genuine excitement. Their eyes lit up, not because I gave them money, but because I gave them my time and attention. I sat in my usual rocking chair, opening a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. For an hour, I wasn't a burden. I wasn't a cash cow. I wasn't an old lady to be finessed. I was a storyteller and a guide, and these children looked at me like I mattered. After the session, Sarah Miller found me wiping down the tables in the craft room. Sarah was the center's director, a woman in her 40s who I had actually taught in 3rd grade. She was bright-eyed and stubborn then, and she hadn't changed one bit. "Evelyn," she said, closing the door behind her, "do you have a minute?" "Of course, dear. What is it?" She sat down across from me, her face serious. "I've known you for over 30 years. You taught me how to read, how to believe in myself. So when I tell you that something is wrong, I need you to listen." I felt my defenses rising, but I stayed quiet. "You've lost weight. You look tired all the time. And today, when you were reading to the kids, I saw you wipe your eyes 3 times. She leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "What's going on, Evelyn? And please don't tell me it's the weather." I opened my mouth to dismiss her concern, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the sincerity in her eyes, or maybe I was just too tired to keep lying. "It's my granddaughter," I heard myself say, "and her husband. They've been depending on me." "Depending on you?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I told her about the monthly payments, the $2,000 that disappeared every month. I told her about the emergency requests, the car repairs, the vacations disguised as necessities. I told her about the conversation I overheard, the words that still echoed in my head. "The old lady is sitting on a gold mine," I repeated, my voice cracking. "That's what he called me." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. "Evelyn, can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone here?" I nodded, surprised by the shift in her voice. "When I was in my 20s, my mother got sick. Really sick. And I moved back home to take care of her. My brother didn't lift a finger. But he had opinions, lots of opinions about her money, her house, her things." She paused, her jaw tightening. "When she passed, he contested the will. Said I had manipulated her, taken advantage of her vulnerability. It took 2 years and every penny I had to fight him in court. I won, but it cost me everything." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I recognize the look in your eyes," Sarah said. "It's the look of someone being used by the people who should love them most. And I want you to know, you're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. And you're not alone." I felt tears sliding down my cheeks, and I didn't try to stop them. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "She's my granddaughter. I promised my husband I would take care of her." "Taking care of someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you," Sarah said firmly. "Arthur would never have wanted that. You know he wouldn't." She was right. Deep down, I knew she was right. But knowing something and doing something about it are 2 very different things. A few weeks later, the request I had been dreading finally arrived at my doorstep. Chloe showed up unannounced, which was rare enough to make me nervous. She usually only came when she needed a check signed in person or when she needed a babysitter. Today she had Leo with her, using him as a shield, as she often did. "Grandma, we need to talk about Leo's baptism," she started, bouncing the baby on her hip. "It's coming up next month, and we want it to be absolutely perfect for him." "That sounds lovely, dear," I said, pouring her tea she would never drink. "The thing is, Ben's parents are coming into town for the ceremony." She paused, giving me a look that was meant to evoke sympathy and pity. "You know how they are. They are so judgmental about everything. If things aren't high-end, they'll make comments." I knew Ben's parents. They were flashy people who lived on credit cards and looked down on anyone who didn't drive a luxury car. We had met twice, and both times they had looked at me like I was furniture. "So we booked the Crystal Garden venue," Chloe continued, speaking quickly now like a saleswoman closing a deal. "And we hired that catering company, the one that did Jennifer's wedding, the expensive one." "Chloe," I interrupted, feeling a tightness building in my chest. "How much is this going to cost?" "It's about $5,000 for everything," she admitted, her lower lip trembling on cue. "We don't have it, Grandma. Ben is between commissions right now, and if we don't pay by Friday, we lose the deposit." $5,000. That was my emergency fund, every penny of it. That was the money I had saved for house repairs, for medical bills, for the unexpected disasters that come with age. "Please, Grandma," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes like they always did at exactly the right moment. "I don't want to be embarrassed in front of his family. They already think I married down. Do it for Leo. He deserves a beautiful baptism, surrounded by family who loves him." For Leo. It was the magic phrase, the key that unlocked my wallet every single time. She knew I couldn't say no to my great-grandson. She knew I wanted him to have good memories. She had learned exactly which buttons to push, and she pushed them without hesitation. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll handle it." "Oh, thank you, Grandma. You're the absolute best." She hugged me then, but her embrace felt light, fleeting, like a butterfly landing for a second before flying away. She didn't stay for tea. She didn't ask how I was doing. As soon as she had the promise of the money, she checked her phone and said she had to run. Leo didn't even get to play with the toys I kept for him. The next morning, I went to the bank to withdraw the money. Mr. Henderson, the branch manager, who had known my husband for over 20 years, looked at the withdrawal slip. He frowned deeply, adjusting his glasses on his nose. "Mrs. Evelyn, this is a significant withdrawal from your savings account." "I know, Mr. Henderson. If you don't mind my asking, is everything all right? No one is pressuring you for this money?" He looked at me with genuine worry, and I understood what he was really asking. Banks are trained to spot elder financial abuse now. It's part of their protocol. The irony was that I was standing there, a willing victim, writing my own ransom note. "No, it's for a family celebration," he said, maintaining what was left of my dignity. "A baptism for my great-grandson. It's a happy occasion." "Very well," he said, though his eyes said he didn't believe me for a second. As I took the envelope full of cash, I felt a strange heaviness settle in my chest. It wasn't just the weight of the money leaving my account. It was the feeling that I was buying my way into my own family, purchasing a seat at a table that should have been mine by right. I didn't know then how right that feeling was. The day of the baptism arrived under a brilliant blue sky. I dressed with extraordinary care, wearing my best navy blue suit and a cream-colored blouse. Around my neck hung the pearl necklace Arthur had given me for our 30th anniversary. I touched the pearls gently, remembering how his eyes had sparkled when he clasped them around my neck. "For my beautiful bride," he had said. 30 years and you still take my breath away. I wanted to look proud today. I wanted to look like the matriarch I felt I had earned the right to be. I took a taxi to the Crystal Garden, watching the city pass by through the window. The venue was even more beautiful than I had imagined, filled with white flowers and soft harp music. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon light, scattering rainbows across the pristine white tablecloths. It looked more like a wedding than a baptism for a 1-year-old, but I kept that thought to myself. I walked in, smiling, looking for my family among the well-dressed guests. I spotted Ben's parents near the entrance, holding champagne flutes and laughing loudly. They were dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my entire outfit. When they saw me approaching, their smiles stiffened slightly. "Hello, Evelyn," Ben's mother said, looking me up and down like she was appraising a piece of furniture. "You made it. How nice." "Of course," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "I wouldn't miss my great-grandson's baptism." "Lovely venue, isn't it?" Ben's father boasted, gesturing around with his champagne glass. "Our kids really have impeccable taste. They know how to throw a party." "We're so proud of what they pulled together," his mother added, beaming with satisfaction. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. They were proud of what I had pulled together, what I had paid for. Every flower, every glass of champagne, every crystal chandelier was paid for with my savings. But I said nothing. I swallowed my anger. I didn't want to cause a scene at Leo's baptism. I walked further into the room, looking for my seat at the family table. The tables were beautifully arranged with elegant place cards written in gold calligraphy. I found the head table, positioned right in front of the flower arch where the ceremony would take place. There were cards for Chloe and Ben in the center, with Leo's little name card between them. There were cards for Ben's parents, positioned prominently right next to them. There were cards for Ben's brother and his girlfriend on the other side. I walked around the table twice, reading every single name. There was no card for Evelyn. A cold pit formed in my stomach, heavy as a stone. Maybe it was a mistake. A simple oversight in the planning chaos. I spotted Chloe rushing past, directing a waiter about the champagne service. "Chloe, dear," I called out, touching her arm gently. She stopped, looking slightly frazzled and impatient. "Oh, hi, Grandma. You made it. Great." "Yes, dear. I was just looking for my seat. I don't see my name at the family table." Chloe's face flushed slightly, but she kept her smile firmly in place. "Oh, right. About that." She lowered her voice, glancing around to make sure no one important was listening. There was a mix-up with the seating chart. The head table only seats 8 people. "So where am I sitting?" I asked, hearing the tremor in my own voice. "Well, we put you at table 9. It's near the back, close to the kitchen, so you'll get the food first." She pointed to a table in the far corner, near the swinging kitchen doors. I could see it from where we stood. A small table wedged between the service entrance and the coat check. There were no other guests at the table. Just a chair. Just me. "Just sit there for now, Grandma," she said, patting my arm dismissively. "It's just a seat, right? The important thing is being here to support us. Just a seat. Just being here." I looked at the head table, where Ben's parents were already settling in, laughing and toasting each other. I looked at table 9, tucked away in the corner, invisible. I had paid for this entire event. I had paid for every chair in this room. And I was being banished to sit alone by the kitchen doors. "It's fine," I said, my voice hollow as an empty shell. "Don't worry about it, dear." "Thanks for understanding, Grandma. You're such an angel." She squeezed my arm without looking at me and rushed off to greet someone more important. I walked to table 9 and sat down on the wobbly chair. From this distance, the party looked like a movie I was watching, not a life I was living. I watched Ben's father stand up and give a toast, his voice booming across the room. "To family," he bellowed, raising his glass high. "And to our wonderful children who put together this magnificent celebration." Applause erupted throughout the venue like a wave. Everyone raised their glasses. Everyone smiled and cheered. No one mentioned the grandmother sitting alone in the corner. No one looked at table 9. I sat there, clutching my purse on my lap, feeling small. I thought about Sarah at the community center, about the children who were always happy to see me. Sarah would never have put me in a corner. She would have given me the seat of honor. Why did strangers treat me with more respect than my own flesh and blood? The champagne at table 9 sat untouched. I couldn't taste anything anyway. Then came the moment that broke everything wide open. The photographer called out across the room, "Okay, time for the family photo. Everyone gather around the baby." The guests moved aside, creating a clear path to the flower arch. Chloe, Ben, and Leo took their positions in the center, smiling their perfect smiles. Ben's parents rushed over, taking their places on either side of the young family. Ben's brother and his girlfriend joined in, completing the picture of generational success. I stood up from table 9. My legs felt heavy, but I walked toward them with determination. I was Leo's great-grandmother. I was the reason they had a roof over their heads. I was the reason this venue existed, this party existed, this entire day existed. I approached the group, smiling uncertainly, trying to find a place where I belonged. I started to step in next to Chloe, reaching out to touch Leo's tiny hand. The photographer raised his camera. "Okay, everyone squeeze in tight. Big smiles." Suddenly, Chloe turned to face me directly. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes were cold and hard as flint. She put a hand on my chest, stopping me in my tracks. "Oh, Grandma," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone in the front row to hear. "Could you step aside for just a second?" I froze, my hand still extended toward Leo. "What do you mean?" "We're doing the main family right now," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You know, just the core group. We want a clean shot for the aesthetic." "The core group?" I repeated, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. Ben's mother chimed in from her position, not even trying to hide her smirk. "Yes, Evelyn, don't crowd the shot. It'll look cluttered. We'll get one with you later. Maybe. Later. Like an afterthought. Like the credits that roll after everyone has already left the theater." I looked at Ben. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was too busy adjusting his expensive tie. I looked at Chloe. She was already posing, tilting her head for the perfect angle, her smile radiant and fake. "Please step aside, Grandma," she said again, impatience creeping into her voice now. "We're losing the light. This is important." Something inside me snapped in that moment. It wasn't a loud snap, not something anyone else could hear. It was the quiet sound of a tether breaking, a rope fraying and finally giving way. The tether that had bound me to my duty, to my guilt, to my desperate need to be loved by these people. It just severed, clean and complete. I looked at them, this beautiful, smiling family arranged in front of their expensive flowers. They looked like a magazine cover, like a perfect advertisement for a life well lived. And it was all a lie. Paid for by the old woman standing out of the frame. "Of course," I said softly, my voice eerily calm. "I wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic." I stepped back from the group, but I didn't stop at the edge of the carpet where the other guests were watching. I kept walking, past the guests who were whispering behind their hands, past table 9 with its single empty chair, past the champagne service and the gift table piled with expensive boxes. I walked straight out through the double doors of the Crystal Garden. "Grandma, where are you going?" I heard Chloe's voice call out faintly behind me. "Grandma, wait! We can take a picture with you now. Come back." I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I walked to the curb and raised my hand for a taxi, my arms steady and sure. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart wasn't pounding. For the first time in 5 years, my mind was crystal clear, like I had finally woken up from a long, terrible dream. They wanted to be the main family? They wanted to be independent and successful and picture perfect? Fine. Then they could pay for it themselves. I went home to my quiet house, closing the door softly behind me. I didn't cry. I had no tears left for people who didn't deserve them. I brewed a pot of tea and sat at my kitchen table in the growing darkness. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need them. I took out my phone and opened the banking app again. The same app I had opened with dread just a few weeks ago felt different now. I navigated to the scheduled transfers section with steady fingers. There it was, the line that had defined my life for 5 years. Monthly rent assistance, Chloe and Ben, $2,000. Next transfer date? Tomorrow. I looked at that line of text, glowing in the darkness. It represented my love. It represented my sacrifice. It represented every time I had chosen their comfort over my own dignity. And now, after today, it represented my humiliation. I pressed edit. Then I pressed delete. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer?" the app asked. I thought about table 9 in the corner by the kitchen. I thought about main family only. I thought about Ben's parents taking credit for my sacrifice. "Yes," I said aloud to the empty room. "I am absolutely sure." I tapped confirm. The line disappeared from my screen forever. Then I did something else, something I had never imagined doing. I went to my contacts and scrolled to Chloe's name. I selected block caller. I did the same for Ben. The silence in my house was not longer lonely or oppressive. It was peaceful. It was mine. I went to bed early that night and slept better than I had in 5 years. I knew the storm was coming. I knew that when the rent payment didn't arrive, panic would set in. But for the first time, that panic wasn't mine to carry. It was theirs. The first few days after the baptism were quiet, almost unnervingly so. I watered my plants. I read my books. I volunteered at the community center. I felt lighter than I had in years, like I had put down a suitcase I didn't know I was carrying. At the center, Sarah noticed the change immediately. "You look different," she said, studying my face carefully. "What happened?" "I made a decision," I told her. "I stopped the money." Her eyes widened. "All of it?" "All of it." And I blocked their numbers. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and squeezed my hand. "Good for you, Evelyn. That took courage." "It doesn't feel like courage," I admitted. "It feels like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." "It will," Sarah said honestly. "But when it does, you won't be alone, I promise." I held on to those words like a lifeline. The other shoe dropped exactly 2 weeks later, but it didn't drop on my phone because their numbers were still blocked. It dropped at the community center in the middle of my reading session. I was in the middle of reading The Giving Tree to the children. Ironically, it was a story about a tree that gave everything until it was just a stump. I used to think it was a beautiful story about unconditional love. Now, sitting in that rocking chair, I thought the tree was a fool. Suddenly, the heavy doors of the library banged open with a crash. The quiet atmosphere shattered like glass. "There she is." I looked up from the book, my heart sinking. Standing at the entrance were Chloe and Ben. They looked frantic, desperate, nothing like their polished baptism selves. Chloe's hair was messy, her makeup smeared. Ben looked like he hadn't slept in days. They marched right past the stunned librarian at the front desk. They marched right into the children's circle, disrupting everything. "Grandma!" Chloe shouted, her voice shrill and accusatory. "What the hell is wrong with you?" The children gasped, their eyes going wide with fear. Little Timmy dropped his toy and pressed closer to my chair. Sarah immediately stepped forward from her desk, placing herself between them and me. "Excuse me," Sarah said firmly, her voice like steel. "This is a library. You cannot yell in here." "Get out of my way," Ben snapped, trying to push past her. "We need to talk to her right now." "She's clearly losing her mind," Chloe yelled, pointing a manicured finger at me. "She stopped paying our rent. She blocked our numbers. She's having some kind of mental episode." I closed the book on my lap gently, keeping my movements calm and deliberate. I looked at the children, whose eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "Children," I said, my teacher's voice steady and reassuring. "Why don't you go with Miss Rodriguez to the craft room for a few minutes?" "Sarah," I added quietly, "please stay. I want a witness for this." Sarah nodded, signaling the other volunteer to take the children away. Once they were gone, I stood up from my rocking chair. I didn't stand up like a tired old woman defeated by circumstances. I stood up like a woman who had finally found her backbone. "Hello, Chloe." "Hello, Ben," I said, my voice calm as still water. "Why are you interrupting my class?" "Interrupting?" Chloe screeched, her composure cracking completely. "Grandma, we are getting evicted. The landlord sent a notice 3 days ago. We have 2 weeks to pay or get out." "Why didn't the transfer go through? We've been trying to call you for weeks." "Did you forget?" Ben asked, trying to sound reasonable but failing miserably. "Did you forget the password to your bank account again? We know you've been having memory problems." "Is that why you ran away from the baptism?" Chloe added, latching onto the narrative like a drowning person. "Because you were confused? Because you didn't know where you were?" I looked at them both, these two desperate people in their expensive clothes. They genuinely believed it. They were so arrogant, so entitled, that they couldn't conceive of another explanation. In their minds, the only reason the money would stop flowing was if the machine was broken. It never occurred to them that the machine had simply decided to turn itself off. "I didn't forget anything," I said clearly, enunciating every word. "And I'm not confused. My mind is sharper than it's been in years." "Then why?" Chloe demanded, frustrated tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this to us? To Leo? Your own great-grandson?" "Because of the photo," I said. "What photo?" Ben looked genuinely baffled. "The family photo at the baptism. You told me to step aside. You said you wanted the main family only." Silence hung in the air like a held breath. Then Chloe let out a hysterical laugh that echoed off the library walls. "Are you serious right now? This is about a picture? You're destroying our lives because you didn't get in a stupid photo?" "You're being petty," she screamed, stamping her foot like a child. "You're just a petty, bitter old woman." "Maybe I am," I said, shrugging calmly. "But I'm a petty, bitter old woman with money. And since I'm not part of the main family, I figured the main family could pay their own rent. Now please leave. You're disturbing the children and disrupting our programs." "We're not leaving until you transfer the money," Chloe shouted, her face red with rage. "Sarah," I said, turning to the director without raising my voice, "would you please call the police? These people are trespassing." Sarah didn't hesitate for even a second. She picked up the desk phone. "Dialing now, Evelyn." Ben's eyes went wide with panic. He grabbed Chloe's arm roughly. "Let's go," he muttered urgently. "We can't be here when the cops show up. I've got warrants." Of course he did. Of course my granddaughter had married a man with warrants. "This isn't over, Grandma," Chloe yelled as Ben dragged her toward the door. "You're sick. You need professional help. And we're going to make sure you get it." They slammed through the doors, leaving chaos in their wake. The silence returned to the library, heavy and thick. My hands were trembling now, the adrenaline finally hitting me. Sarah walked over and pressed a glass of water into my hands. "Are you okay, Evelyn?" "I am," I said, taking a long sip. "I think I finally am." But I was wrong. It wasn't over yet. They were desperate now, and desperate people do dangerous things. I had won this battle, but they were preparing for a war. A war for my sanity, my freedom, and everything I had left. 3 weeks passed after the library confrontation. 3 weeks of peace that felt too fragile, too temporary. I didn't need to stalk them to know what was happening. In a small town, news travels faster than wildfire. And nothing travels faster than the fall of people who pretended to be high society. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, told me she saw a tow truck at Chloe's apartment complex. "It was quite a spectacle, Evelyn," she gossiped over the fence, her eyes gleaming with schadenfreude. "That fancy car your grandson-in-law drives? Hooked up and dragged away in broad daylight. He was screaming at the tow truck driver in his pajamas, threatening to sue. Can you imagine?" I just nodded, sipping my morning tea calmly. "That's a shame," I said. But inside, I felt a grim satisfaction I wasn't proud of. That car had been the symbol of their vanity, their lifestyle built on my sacrifice. Then came the rumors about the eviction moving forward. Apparently, Chloe had tried to pay the landlord with a credit card that was declined in front of everyone. She had posted a frantic story on Instagram trying to sell her designer handbags. So sad to part with these babies. Hashtag minimalism, hashtag new chapter, hashtag letting go. Minimalism, a new chapter. Just more lies to cover up the fact that they were drowning in their own choices. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. Desperate people never do. They would find another angle, another scheme. And the only leverage they had left was me, or rather, my mental state. It was a Thursday morning, 2 days before Thanksgiving. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, deceptively peaceful. I wasn't alone in my living room. Sarah had come over to help me with some paperwork. We were sitting at my dining table, going over the community center's quarterly budget. "You were absolutely right about the discrepancy in line 4, Sarah said, pointing at the spreadsheet. "We would have lost $600 if you hadn't caught that decimal placement error." "Your eyes are sharper than our actual accountants, Evelyn." "Numbers don't lie, Sarah," I replied, pouring her another cup of coffee. "Only people do." Just then, a heavy knock echoed through my house. It wasn't a polite knock. It was authoritative, official. I looked at Sarah. We both knew what this might be. "That must be them," I said softly, my heart beginning to race. "Are you sure you want me here?" Sarah asked, concern written across her face. "I need you here," I replied. "I need the truth to have a witness." I opened the front door. There they were, Chloe and Ben, looking disheveled, but wearing carefully rehearsed expressions of concern. And standing between them was a woman I had never seen before. She was dressed in a gray business suit, holding a clipboard, her face professionally neutral. "Mrs. Evelyn?" the woman asked. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Miss Jenkins. I'm a caseworker with Adult Protective Services." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face completely calm. "We received an urgent report regarding your welfare and safety. May we come in to discuss it?" "Of course," I said, stepping aside to let them enter. "Please, make yourselves comfortable." Chloe and Ben marched in like they already owned the place. When they saw Sarah sitting at my dining table, they stopped short. "Who's that?" Ben demanded rudely, pointing at her. "A friend," I said simply. "She's welcome to stay." "Good," Chloe said, recovering quickly. "It's good someone responsible is watching her. She really shouldn't be alone in her condition." They sat down on my sofa while Ms. Jenkins remained standing, pen poised over her clipboard. "Mrs. Evelyn," Ms. Jenkins began, her tone carefully professional, "your grandchildren have filed a formal petition regarding your capacity to manage your own affairs. They claim that you have been exhibiting signs of cognitive decline, possibly advanced dementia. They report that you have become erratic, aggressive, and most concerningly," she glanced down at her notes, "that you have forgotten to pay essential bills, putting both yourself and your dependents at significant financial risk." "Dependents?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "What dependents?" "Us, Grandma," Chloe burst out, playing her victim role with practiced ease. "We depend on you. We had an agreement. And you just forgot? Like you forgot where you put your keys?" She turned to Ms. Jenkins, summoning tears with impressive skill. "She's been forgetting everything lately. Names, dates, appointments. And now, the financial support she promised us." "It's not her fault," Ben added, shaking his head with rehearsed sadness. "It's the disease. But we can't let her destroy her own finances because she's confused. We need emergency guardianship over her accounts to protect her. To protect her." The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. They weren't here to check on my health or safety. They were here to seize control of my bank accounts, to reinstate the flow of money by legal force. Ms. Jenkins turned to me with a careful, assessing gaze. "Mrs. Evelyn, is it true? Did you forget to make the payments you had been making regularly?" The room went absolutely silent. Chloe looked at me with a mixture of ear and triumph. She thought she had me cornered with no escape. If I said no, I had to explain why I cut them off, which they would spin as erratic behavior. If I said yes, I admitted to memory loss and cognitive decline. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. I placed the cup down on the saucer with a gentle clink. "Yes, Miss Jenkins," I said clearly. "I did forget." Chloe let out a loud exhale of relief. "See?" she told the social worker regally. "She admits it. She probably doesn't even know what day it is." Ben smirked, already counting his victory. "It's okay, Grandma. We'll take care of everything from now on." I stood up slowly and walked to my sideboard. "I forgot," I continued, my voice hardening like steel. "I forgot that I should have stopped enabling these parasites 5 years ago. The smirk vanished from Ben's face instantly. "Excuse me?" Ms. Jenkins asked, her eyebrows rising. I opened a drawer and picked up a thick red binder. It was the kind I used to use for grading papers when I was still teaching. The cover was worn at the edges from years of careful use. I walked back to the coffee table and dropped it with a heavy thud. Chloe jumped at the sound. "Ms. Jenkins," I said, "you want to talk about my memory? Let's talk about math instead." I flipped the binder open to the first section, marked with a blue tab. This is a complete record of every single bank transfer I have made to Chloe and Benjamin for the past 60 months. Monthly rent assistance, $2,000, paid on the 25th of every month. Total over 5 years, $120,000. I flipped to the next section, marked with a yellow tab. Additional emergency expenses requested by them over the same period. Car repairs, $4,000. Vacations disguised as emergencies, $7,000. Medical bills that turned out to be spa treatments, $2,000. I flipped to the final section, marked with a red tab. And finally, a $5,000 withdrawal last month for a baptism party. A party where I was seated alone at a table by the kitchen doors because I wasn't main family enough for the seating chart. A party where I was told to step aside from the family photo because I would ruin the aesthetic. I looked directly at Ms. Jenkins, holding her gaze. I stopped paying them not because I forgot Ms. Jenkins. I stopped paying them because on that day, I finally remembered who I was. I remembered that I am a grandmother, not a bank. I am a person, not an ATM. Chloe's face had gone completely pale. "She's lying," she shrieked, her composure shattering. "She's making it all up. Look at her, she's agitated. That's a symptom of dementia." "Agitated?" Sarah spoke up for the first time, her voice calm but firm. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood up from the dining table, holding the spreadsheet she had been reviewing. "Ms. Jenkins, my name is Sarah Miller. I am the director of the West Side Community Center. I have known Evelyn for over 30 years. She taught me to read when I was 8 years old. For the past decade, she has been our most reliable volunteer, working with children and adults alike." Sarah walked over and handed the spreadsheet to Ms. Jenkins. "Just yesterday, Evelyn reviewed our fiscal year budget for the upcoming quarter. She found a complex accounting error that 3 staff members, including myself, had completely missed. She corrected a decimal point placement that saved our nonprofit $643. Sarah gestured toward Chloe and Ben with barely concealed disgust. "This is the work of a woman with a sharper mind than anyone else in this room. If she stopped paying these two, it wasn't a mistake or a symptom. It was a decision, a sound, rational, and long overdue decision." The room fell completely silent. Ms. Jenkins looked at the budget spreadsheet with its careful corrections. Then she looked at my red binder full of meticulous bank records. She flipped through the pages slowly, seeing the dates, the amounts, the notes I had kept. Finally, she looked up at Chloe and Ben. Her expression had changed completely. The professional neutrality was gone, replaced by the cold, hard glare of someone who has just realized she's been lied to. "So," Ms. Jenkins said, her voice lycus, "you filed an emergency report, wasting county resources and my entire morning, to accuse a perfectly competent woman of dementia because she stopped giving you her money?" "No," Ben stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's not like that. She promised. We have a lifestyle to maintain." "A lifestyle?" Ms. Jenkins repeated incredulously. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, are you aware that filing a false report with Adult Protective Services is a criminal offense? Are you aware that attempting to gain guardianship for financial gain constitutes fraud?" She tapped my red binder with her pen. "And looking at these detailed transfer records, this looks suspiciously like textbook financial elder abuse." "We didn't abuse her," Chloe cried, but her voice had shrunk to almost nothing now. "We're family. We were just trying to help." Family doesn't try to have someone declared incompetent so they can control their bank accounts, I said. I looked at my granddaughter, really looked at her for what felt like the first time. I saw the panic in her eyes, but I didn't see remorse. I didn't see guilt or shame or any recognition of what she had done. I only saw regret that her scheme hadn't worked. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "What?" Chloe whispered. "Get out of my house," I said again, louder this time. "And Miss Jenkins, I would like to file a formal complaint against them for harassment and attempted exploitation." "I can certainly help you with that, Mrs. Evelyn," Ms. Jenkins said, pulling out a new form. "No, Grandma, please!" Ben stood up desperately. "If you do that, we'll lose everything. The eviction, the lawsuits, everything." "You should have thought about that before you tried to have me declared insane," I replied. "You wanted to take control of my life? Congratulations. You just gave me back control of yours. Now leave my house before Sarah calls the police again." Sarah stood up, crossing her arms over her chest. She looked ready for a fight. Chloe and Ben looked at the three of us standing together. 3 women, united and unbroken. The victim who had found her voice. The witness who had her back. And the law that was finally on the right side. They knew it was over. They slunk toward the door without another word, their shoulders hunched in defeat. As the door clicked shut behind them, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. A weight I hadn't even realized I had been carrying for 5 long years. I looked at Sarah, and she was smiling proudly. I looked at Ms. Jenkins, who was shaking her head in disbelief. "Tea?" I offered. "I have fresh cookies, too." "I would love some," Ms. Jenkins said, almost laughing. "And then let's talk about that restraining order." The aftermath was swift and brutal for them. Without my dementia to hide behind, the investigation turned in a very different direction. Ms. Jenkins filed her report, and the authorities began looking into their finances. They found credit card fraud, unpaid loans, and a pattern of manipulation stretching back years. Ben's outstanding warrants caught up with him, too. It turned out there were more than just a few. They were evicted from their loft 2 weeks before Christmas. The last I heard from Mrs. Gable, Ben was staying on his parents' couch, and they were not happy about it. Chloe was forced to get a job as a receptionist at a dental office. Her influencer career dead in the water. She tried to call me a few times from different numbers, but my phone didn't ring for her anymore. Blocked numbers stay blocked. 3 months after everything settled, I found myself back at the community center. It was a special afternoon, the annual spring reading festival for the children. I walked in carrying an envelope in my hand. Inside was a check for $2,000, the exact amount I used to send away every month. The money that used to disappear into a bottomless pit of entitlement and ingratitude. Now it had a purpose. A real purpose. "Attention, everyone," Sarah announced, gathering the children and volunteers together. "Mrs. Evelyn has a special surprise for all of us." I walked to the front of the room, looking at all the eager faces. Children I had read to for years. Staff members who had become my friends. "This donation is for new books," I said, handing the check to Sarah, "and for new instruments in the music room, and for whatever else you need to keep doing the wonderful work you do here." The children cheered so loudly I thought the roof might come off. Little Timmy ran up and wrapped his arms around my legs. "Thank you, Grandma Evelyn," he shouted. Then another child hugged me, and another, and another. I was surrounded by laughter, by genuine gratitude, by love that didn't come with an invoice. "Picture time," Sarah called out, grabbing her camera. She gathered us all together in front of the colorful reading corner. There were 20 children, Sarah, the volunteers, the staff members, and me right in the center, exactly where I belonged. No one told me to step aside. No one told me I would ruin the aesthetic. No one suggested I wait until later. "Everyone squeeze in," Sarah said. Big smiles. I looked at the camera and smiled. Aerial smile that reached my eyes. The flash went off, capturing the moment forever. A few weeks later, I was helping Sarah hang new decorations in the lobby. Spring had arrived, and the center was bursting with color and energy. "Evelyn, come look at this," Sarah called from near the entrance. I walked over, wiping my hands on my apron. On the wall, next to the donation plaques and thank you letters, was a new frame. Inside was the photo from the reading festival. 20 smiling children, Sarah and the volunteers, and me, right in the middle. Underneath, someone had added a small brass plate. It read, "Evelyn and her true family." I stood there for a long moment, looking at all those faces. None of them shared my blood. None of them were related to me by birth. But all of them shared my heart. All of them knew my worth. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Unknown number. But I knew who it was. A new phone, trying to get through. I looked at the screen for a moment, then looked back at the photo on the wall. Then I turned the phone off and slipped it back into my pocket. Sarah appeared beside me with 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" she asked gently. I took the cup from her hand, feeling its warmth spread through my fingers. "I am," I said. "I finally am." And I meant it, truly, for the first time in years. If you have ever felt taken for granted by the people who should love you the most, I want you to know something. If you have ever been made to feel small so someone else could feel important, please hear me. If you have ever wondered whether you deserve better, the answer is yes. You are not an ATM. You are not a prop in someone else's photo. You are the main character of your own life, and you get to decide who deserves a place in your story. Don't be afraid to step out of their picture and start painting your own. So let me ask you, have you ever had to cut off someone you loved to save yourself? What would you have done differently in my situation? I'd love to hear your stories and your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than you know. Until next time, take care of yourself, because you are worth it. You truly are.